Good afternoon. Welcome to the 2023 Virtual Great Lakes Fishing Show. It is segment 5. It's Saturday. We're here at the Greater Niagara Fishing and Outdoor Expo in beautiful Niagara Falls, New York. We're just yards away from the Niagara River.
We are.
Not too far from Lake Ontario.
You can hear it when you walk out the hotel in the room, yeah.
And you can definitely feel the wind coming off the big
Boy,
water.
that's for sure. The wind never stops blowing here.
No, it blows.
Man.
So, yeah.
So not our guest co-host. You're like our typical co-host.
Well, I'm actually starting. I'm questioning my job security because you've had some like the guest hosts, guest co-hosts have been so good that I'm like I'm getting a little insecure. So I got my A game here today. I'm on it.
All right, I can't wait. So
All right.
Trevor Sumption from Fish Hawk, and then joining us right now, our guest here is going to be Mark McGowan from Garmin. Mark, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Well, we wanted to have you on the show to talk about forward-facing sonar. We're seeing it in so many places. We were just talking about muskie fishing with it and how it's become such a powerful tool there. We see it in our neck of the woods with people using it for like drop shotting walleyes. It's become just an incredible weapon there.
Exactly.
But it's becoming bigger and bigger in trolling. But a lot of people haven't seen it yet. They haven't seen the power of it in the trolling game. So you can just maybe give people a little bit of a taste of what that's like using that forward-facing sonar system in a trolling setting.
You know, Garmin was the first manufacturer to come out with forward-facing sonar, which was our Panoptic, our original version. And since then, we've come out with our Live Scope. Now we've come out with Live Scope Plus. And everybody is really focused so much on the Live Scope version that they kind of forgot about the Panoptic you use for trolling. And here at the Great Lakes, that PS30 is a fantastic Panoptic forward-facing sonar to be able to see the salmon coming around your riggers, your dipsies. You can see the fish coming and going out of the cone angle. And that is just a fantastic tool. And the guys up here that really got into it are catching a lot of fish. They're so tuned into seeing those fish on the screen. You can watch the salmon staging in the different areas in the fall, so you know exactly where they are. You can see how they react to the baits. You know, if they're not hitting the lure, you change your speed, change your color, change presentation. But that PS30 is a fantastic tool for trolling for trout and salmon, and even for the walleyes.
Very good. Trevor, I know you got some questions.
Well, I just did a seminar earlier this morning on specifically on using a fish hawk, when walleye fishing. But one of the questions I got from one of the attendees was, well, have you ever thought about putting a camera in the fish hawk probe? And I said, well, truthfully, we don't need a camera in the fish hawk probe because now with Panoptics, I basically have a camera. It's not a camera, of course. It's not showing you video, but what it is doing is it's showing me real-time reaction of what the fish are doing. It doesn't matter if it's dark underwater. It doesn't matter if the water's cloudy. It doesn't matter what water clarity is. It is a camera where you're able to actually judge how fish are reacting to a presentation, where all of a sudden, you got your spread down and you see this, fish, salmon, we'll call it, swimming to your spread.
Streaking into the spread.
And he's either going to eat or he's not. And if he's not, well, that's a pretty darn good clue that maybe something needs to change, right?
Gotta change something.
So it's I mean, everybody uses the term game-changing technology. I can pretty definitively say at this point that in my lifetime, as in the fishing realm, right, this is the game changer. I mean, it's here.
There is absolutely no doubt. And I've had the opportunity to make my living working in the marine electronics industry, and I've been at this now for 40 years. So to see it go from paper graphs and flashers to this technology is absolutely mind-boggling.
Yeah.
And like you said, the Panoptic is like having an underwater camera. You're seeing real time
without the limitations.
Right, without limitations.
On a side note, Mark is one of the guys. You've done this 40 plus years, right?
Exactly.
I mean, Mark is one of the guys that I look up to, right? I mean, he has been there and he has done that. So, like, for me personally, these are the guys that So yeah, for what it's worth.
Yeah, it's really
fantastic guy.
I've had a fantastic career in an industry that I absolutely love. And to watch this technology change the way it has, it's mind-boggling.
Yeah.
You know, when I first started, we didn't even have electronic cartography. You had a Loran to use for navigation in the Great Lakes, and now we've got GPS, we got cartography. It's unbelievable. And forward-facing sonar, it is probably the biggest breakthrough that I've seen in this industry.
I think the other thing too, you know, I know with our products, you know, we're putting more product now on 18, 20-foot trailer boats than we do on the traditional big lake, you know, Great Lakes boat. And what's made that possible is that technology. So there's a safety factor that goes with that. There's all, you know, you said you referenced the Loran C, you know, I mean, now everybody's got a GPS, and, you know, we've got good weather forecasting, and, you know, it's possible for us to go out on these big waters with respect and knowledge and be safe, and you know, just one more thing that technology has brought us.
I mean, and you look at the kayak business, all of the sonar products that are on these kayaks today, it's unbelievable to see how many different sonar products and live scope and forward-facing sonars on a kayak. And these guys love it. It really works. And like I said, it improves your safety. You can go out there and feel confident that you're going to be able to get back. I mean, it's just unbelievable technology, and the pricing really is affordable. You know, we make products out there that fit everybody's budget.
Yeah, there's a kayak right down the aisle from us here that you got the Garmin sonar system. He's actually got a fish hawk on it. I mean, it's loaded. It's loaded. You find out.
Absolutely. Great starter.
But controlling a little bit about the model that you see commonly in this application. But can you just tell, I think the question that I hear all the time from people is, what is the difference between Panoptics and live scope?
Okay, that's a good question. The main difference is, you know, Panoptic has a wider cone angle. It's a bigger transducer. It's going to be mounted on a transom of the boat, which you can steer it backwards so you can see the fish coming in. You can see your spread and your riggers and sometimes the dipsies. Where your live scope is a narrower cone angle that you normally put on either a trolling motor or on a aftermarket pole that you can steer and aim it to the target that you want to look at. You use live scope for trolling, but you're going to have to steer it because the cone angle is a lot narrower, so you're going to have to be aiming it towards your downriggers manually, where the PS30 is a wider cone angle. You can steer it electronically, and it's definitely the way you want to go.
What is it from prop wash and stuff like that?
Well, you want to get it where you get the cleanest water, because you know, you're going to get, when there's air bubbles in prop wash, you can get return signals, you can get some noise. So you want to try and get it where you get the cleanest surface of water. And that's the same with even a traditional transducer.
Yeah, it's the same thing we tell people too. Yeah, unfortunately, we're all fighting for that same real estate. Our joke in the office is transducers are like Jello. There's always room for one more.
Exactly.
You know, so.
Boy, some of these boats got 4 or 5 across the back. It's unbelievable. You're right. We're running out of real estate.
Maybe we should say transducers are like potato chips. You can't have just one.
There you go.
Right. You can't eat just one. That's right.
Yeah, and they've got. I mean, there's. Yeah, you need more than just one. I mean, as we've you know, a number of topics here, you know, the different seminars here at the show, you know, the transducers are now specialized devices. I mean, they're really, you know, to unlock the potential of the electronics that we have.
So. And so many people just take the transducer for granted, and you can't, because that is critical to get the best performance out of any sonar unit. I don't care who made it, what company, the transducer is critical, and you want to get it mounted where you get the least amount of turbulence.
Absolutely.
If you have any questions for Mark from Garmin, go ahead and put them in the comments, and we'll get them to Mark here. He'll be with us for about 10 more minutes. Mark, I've talked to a couple different people who are running this. We did a show early on in the history. I think it's episode 9 or something like that on the Great Lakes Fishing Podcast with Casey Prisco, who runs the Panoptics on the back of his boat. And one of the things that, I don't know if it was Casey or somebody else was telling me, that one of the things that they like about it, where they see the power of it, is they'll be running with their spread. Maybe they're running 10 lines out, and one line is bringing the fish in, but they're not biting that line. It's kind of an attractor. It brings the fish in, and they're biting somewhere else. And he could watch this over and over again. And he's like, in a normal case, he goes, I'd bring that line in and put something else on it because it wasn't catching fish. But being able to see how fish were,
it's lighting up the rest of his spread. Yeah,
it's an attractor.
You got to leave that out.
Right.
So
Right.
again, there's another thing where, it doesn't seem like it's something that you could see, but it's made a big impact.
Oh yeah, Casey is one of the first charter captains that I know up here that really took live scope or Panoptic to a different level. He's really got it down pat, and he has sold a lot of those products for Garmin because of his ability to use it.
It's one of those things that you almost need to see it firsthand. I mean,
Right.
you really do. I mean, you almost need to experience it. I mean, I think this winter, in an ice fishing setting was honestly the first time I've really had time to sit down and spend a lot of time with units just over the course of maybe 3 days of fishing. And I get it now, right? It's one of those things that's like I knew it was there. I knew it was popular. I knew sales were great, all these kind of things, but until I actually spent those 3 days, it's like, okay, light goes on where, I mean, people are investing in this technology and it does not take you long to figure out why once you've actually experienced it.
And, there's a lot of really good YouTube videos out there that show how these products actually work. And it's well worth taking a look at them. If you're considering buying one of these products, just go out and watch some of those videos and it'll make a believer out of you because it really is seeing, believing.
Yeah, that's one thing I wanted to ask you about is, all right, so the model that we want is a PS30.
PS30.
Okay. So I go and I stop by my favorite retailer here at the show. I pick up a PS30. I get home. What's my next step? What do I got to do to get this thing working?
The best thing to do if you're going to install it yourself is go on YouTube and there's be videos out there to show you how to install it.
Okay. How do I use it? I get out there, and that's the other thing. It's like a lot of, I'm not going to say our generation. It's probably every generation, but we get our toys and we just want to start pushing buttons. And, I know these places send instructions, but sometimes those things we don't like to do. So how do I use it in this application? How do I get it set up where I can use it to actually be a fishing tool?
Once you get it installed properly, when you get on the boat, just turn your unit on, go to Panoptic, hit live view, and just start adjusting the gain to where you get the cleanest picture with the least amount of turbulence. I mean, the factory settings on it are really very good, so it's not going to take you long to get it tweaked in there, that's for sure. And again, there's YouTube videos that show you how to do it.
Easy to get dialed in.
Yeah, because you're actually seeing it, and it's pretty easy.
Now, one of the other things that is becoming really popular in electronics, and it's a good thing for people like you because it costs more money, bigger screens. So what kind of options do we have with screens?
Well, that's is a huge option for consumers. The smallest screen we make now that'll Panoptic will work on is a 6-inch, but we go from 6.
Oh, really? You can go down to 6.
We just came out with a 6-inch a month ago.
Really?
For the smaller boats and kayaks, and it's got Panoptic capabilities, but you can go from a 6, a 7, 8, 10, 12, 17, 19, 24. So it depends on how much you want to spend, but we got screens now up to 24 inches.
That's what I want. I want the big screen so I can't even see what's in front of me.
Right.
No, you might as well get 2.
Might as well get 2, right?
Or I've seen 3. But yeah, no, it's that's interesting though that a 6-inch screen, obviously that's going to hit a different. What are the price point? I mean, where does it start?
$799.
$799 for the PS30.
No, the PS30 is $14.99.
$14.99, and then $799 for the 6-inch display.
Right.
Okay.
Yep. But we now make screen sizes to fit just about every application.
Every application, and if I want to spend way more than $7.99, you can help me out there too.
Oh yeah, you can go way up.
But it's one of those things, though. And we've talked about today here in the booth. People have been stopping by and just chatting and talking about what they've got going on in their boats. And there was a gentleman here who's like, I'm thinking about getting a fish hawk. I don't know what. I was thinking about just getting a TD just to kind of get started. And his wife was standing right next to him, and she's like, why would you do that? just get the one that you need.
Buy once, cry once.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And we talk about, all the money that we spend on fuel and bait and lures and rods and downriggers and everything else. It's like, here's a tool that can really help deliver success to you. And okay, it's going to cost us a few $1,000s, but if we're going to go out and do this and invest our, that's the other thing, time. Trevor and I have been talking all weekend. We both have teenage kids, and we're seeing them about ready to go out the door here in the next 5 or 6 years. And it's like, we don't have a lot of time.
Yeah, you appreciate it more when you don't have it.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So make the best of your time and try to do things that are going to help you be successful in the water. You take your kids out, you take your family out, friends, whatever. You want the tools on your boat that are going to help you be successful.
Definitely. And live scope, forward-facing sonar definitely lets you catch more fish because you're not going to be fishing where there isn't any.
Right.
You're always going to see them on the screen.
In some circles, there's controversy around it. I mean, and that's not unique to this. That's any technology.
Right.
And I mean, what's Garmin's answer? I mean, how do you deflect that?
Is it won't make them bite.
Right.
If you can see them, and some days it's going to show you how bad of a fisherman you really are.
Right.
You're seeing fish all day and not catching any.
Right. Well, I remember that with underwater cameras. I was involved with that whole business in the early days, and that was the thing. Is it was kind of funny because the talk of outlawing or legislating them actually really blew the category up, where it legitimized it, and people are like,
see how good it really is.
Yeah, it's like, well, outlaw it, but I want mine first.
Exactly. Yeah, I want mine.
I want mine first. Just do it after I get mine. So
we see it everywhere. I mean, you see it like I used to be a duck hunter. And spinning wing decoys was that was a big thing. They were going to ban those, and you got all these different rules against crossbows, and then you can only have so much poundage and all these different things going on with it. But I think the answer really comes, and it's something I tell people all the time, is with two different things, and that's one is back limits.
Right.
If we start seeing things go, then you
adjust the bag
limits. That with bag limits, you drop the bag limits, and then the other thing is us as sportsmen and sportswomen, like, we can go out and just tear them up if we want to, but it's like, let's be responsible and know that this is a fun thing for us today. We're going to go out and do this, but we don't have to put every fish that we catch in the
box. Exactly. Catch and release. Don't destroy the resource.
Yeah.
We're out there to have fun.
Right.
Exactly.
And you see it in a lot of forms of fishing. But then there are other forms where it's like, I want to put that thing in the frying pan really, really bad.
Yeah.
And again, I don't want to tell people, hey, don't take any fish home. You can't eat fish, because that's why we're there. And that's what makes it fun.
And it's also the great fishery, they're put and take fisheries, right? These fish are put in to harvest to a degree. That doesn't mean that we're going to abuse the resource or anything like that. And I think at the end of the day, if more people are enjoying the resource, the more people that enjoy the resource, the more effective we're going to be in protecting it over time.
For sure.
Especially, and that was something that we all talked about here before we went on the air too, is we walk around the show and we see a lot of gray hair, and like, I was sitting here have gray hair,
or no hair.
I have no hair.
So, like, getting young people out and getting them introduced to sports is really important.
Exactly.
And one thing that we know about young people is they love technology. You were talking about that too.
No question.
You have young people come up to your booth. What do they do? Tell me about that.
They are really good with technology. You're right. I mean, I watch some of these young kids. They don't even ask me how to work it. They can figure it out themselves.
They know more. They know how to work it better than you do.
Unreal. It's absolutely amazing. I mean, kids, 10, 12 years old, they know what button to push, what menus mean, how to save waypoints. I mean, they really have it down pat. No question.
We got a couple questions, Chris. Let's grab one of those.
All right. So Eric McKinney here from Facebook says, can you explain the difference between the PS30 and the PS31?
The PS31 was more for facing forward, like on your trolling motor, up front, where the 30 is going to be used on the transom.
All right. And Mark says, what about flipping the PS30? Do you know what that means?
I'm not familiar with what he means on that.
I don't know what that means either. So, Mark, maybe you can clarify that a little bit as far as what you're asking about there. But when we see, and even us now starting to get into our gray hair years, we're getting more and more intuitive with our electronics and our phones. But those kids, like, that's what they do. Like, they know how to operate electric, and they've
Exactly.
been doing it their whole lives.
My 14-year-old's a lot more into baseball than he is into fishing, right? But he knows what a Panoptix is.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So he's like,
It's
You know,
definitely become a buzzword. that's
he
for
may
sure.
not even know what Garmin is, but he knows what Panoptix is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's been a huge game changer.
Well, Mark, we'll keep an eye on if he gives us some clarification on his question. But appreciate you stopping by here. I know
Okay.
it's a busy timing here at the show. You get the chance to talk to people and kind of get some feedback from folks on your product and get a chance to explain some things.
Yeah,
The
the show's been really, really good.
Yeah.
Yep.
And again, this is a unique show in that there's a lot of education here. There's seminar
Exactly.
rooms. There's lots of stuff happening. And, Trevor did a seminar earlier today on the Fishhawk X2, and I said to him, like, it's amazing to me. You walk through these hallways with the seminar rooms, and these rooms are full. Like,
Oh, yes, they are.
people are not here to just kind of walk in a few here
That's
or there.
for sure.
But those seminar rooms are full. Like, people are here to learn
To
how
learn.
to catch fish.
Yep, that's for sure. That's one nice thing about this show. It is a real learning show. It is. It's a great experience.
I don't know. Bob Songin was standing here 2 minutes ago, and now he's gone. We do have Mark Romanack, I see, in the virtual room. Hey, Mark, I really appreciate you stopping by.
Okay.
We're going to bring
Appreciate
Mark Romanack on right now. And
Okay, guys.
Thanks, Mark. You can get you out of there.
Oh, here's Bob. Bob's walking in right now.
There, Bob's
he is.
coming in here.
All right, Bob, swing around behind Trevor here. That was Mark McEwen from Garmin. Appreciate it.
Another Garmin guy right here.
Switching over to the government.
Joe, Ben, I know what's going on there. How's it been going?
It's been going pretty good, showing some of the stuff that Shane's had over the years and people asking about it. And it's been going pretty good. It's nice to be here. I'm sure a lot of guys have already mentioned. You get to see other guys you don't get to see from up and down the lakeshore that you're not seeing all the time. So
Right.
it's good.
I saw Vito, a couple
Yeah,
buddies
Vito
from
came over.
a couple buddies from Canada come
Yeah.
down. It's like you didn't realize, but like I haven't seen you guys in 4 years.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, what the hell,
I know.
So, yeah.
I know. Get the old stories.
Yeah, exactly.
Some new stories
Yeah.
going. So it's been pretty cool.
Right,
It's good that there's some news stories going.
Yeah.
Keep telling the same.
Oh, we can.
Yeah.
The older we get,
The more, yeah,
They become more legendary.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
So, Bob, you wanted to come in and talk about something that you're doing kind of on the side to help the fishery. Let's talk about that a little bit.
You do. Okay, and so fishery advisory board. We give feedback to them, a lot of what we've seen over the course of the year, what we see happening with the fishery. They do their surveys and they get a picture from their surveys, but their surveys that really don't tell the whole story, because a lot of those times they're trying to find out how many fish these guys catch, and sometimes small fish, and they don't identify that they're small fish, but put them back. So we kind of give them how big the fish are that we're seeing, really where we're catching them and what we're seeing out there. And they use that information as part of the decision process of what they're going to do in the future as far as what they're going to stock and how they're going to stock. Okay. And it's worked out pretty well so far. They take what we feed them, plus they also take what they find out from the USGS with their bottom trawls and what they see as far as fish sizes with the survey boat, and they put all that together and come up where they're going to go. And we started this about 4 or 5 years ago, but it's actually become official now that we have this organization. And we have representatives across the whole lake. We have me and Vince Pierleoni, our West End Lake professional lake, and then we've got guys from the East End. They divided the lake up into 3 sections: West, Midwest, Central West, Central East, and then East. Okay, and we've got 2 representatives from the lake, professionals So there's 8 there. Then we have 2 representatives, trip guys. So they're getting that information in their fall fishery and the upcoming spring fishery with steelhead and that, and how everything's working for that. And then there are a couple at-large members, like Joe Yeager is an at-large member, representing more of the recreational focus. So, go ahead.
I understand that one of the results of that is we're going to see a few more kings here in the next year. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yes. The result from that is we're going to see about 90,000 more kings going in this year.
Right. And that's based on forage base, health of the forage base.
What they're doing with the forage base now is Brian from the USGS, they are actually putting together a predictive model where they believe the forage base is going to go.
Be there.
Now, 2 years ago, we had a very large recruitment of young of the year alewives, and the recruitment from year 1 to year 2 wasn't as strong as they thought it would be, but now we have a lot more adult alewives in the system, so that the kings don't have to eat as many number-wise, because we get more nutrients from the large ones. Right. So that predictive model, they share that with us. There's also going to be a change in brown trout. They're changing strains of brown trout. They're changing to a strain that they believe is going to have a higher survivability rate, go a little bit bigger. Brown trout over the years of the hatchery, you walk up to one of the ponds and the fish would swim towards you because they know they're going to get fed. Now this new strain, they swim away from you. They're more scattered when you put them in. One of the problems over the years with brown trout survival is you put them in the lake, they don't go anywhere. This new strain they put in, they're expecting to disperse a lot quicker.
Birds pick them off.
Right, especially the cormorants and that. The birds pick them up. They're expecting these fish to disperse quicker, so they're going to hopefully in the long run have a higher survival on them for us.
I was in Wilson last spring, and you could see them. You could walk on the pier and see them all swimming around. The birds were enjoying the free dinner.
Oh, yeah, no doubt.
I mean, you've been doing this a long time, Bob, as a captain. Let's face it, the three of us sitting here, we make our living, right? We support companies, we support families, in this fishery. How should we feel? I mean, what do we feel that the future of that fishery is right now? I mean, how do we feel right now?
Working with this group, we feel pretty positive about it. Things have changed. They cut the stocking back because they were worried about the forage base. They're not going to have a target anymore. It's not going to be, we're going to work up to put in 2 million fish. They're going to more adaptively manage the lake because of the contribution of wild fish, which in the beginning, years ago, was non-factor because there was no wild reproduction at all. But over the years, with the way that they're managing the water flow at Salmon River at the hatchery, they've got a large number of wild fish. And you can't, from their perspectives, you can't just keep throwing more and more fish, and you're going to get to a point where it's going to be diminishing returns. So it's going to be an adaptive management. So depending on size of fish, depending on where they believe the population of the alewives is going to go, the total forage base size, and plus what we're seeing using all of those factors, it may go up 2,000 one year or 200,000 one year, and it may drop 150,000 the next year, depending where the predictive models are. But doing that, they're going to try and stabilize it. But so long range, I think they're onto a good thing, and I think the fishery is going to be a lot healthier.
I took a look at the minutes of your last meeting you guys had in January. And this is something I think that you guys put a lot of time. There's people, you guys have a meeting. It's not like we're going to go on Zoom. You all get together, you all sit down in a room together and talk this over. So it's a big time commitment to be on this committee and to be a part of this. And I'm just interested in seeing what that room is like. Now, I know sometimes you talk to captains and they don't have a lot of good things to say about whatever their managing agency is, whether it's in Michigan or wherever. You'll talk to guys and they're dumb. Well, you guys are sitting down and you're cooperating. You guys are working together. Just tell us a little bit about kind of what the temperature in that room is when you're all together like that.
Well, I'll tell you, we've got on a better basis as far as understanding what they're doing and them understanding what our needs are. And it's come down quite a bit from where the old days were. Everybody's
Yeah,
yelling
yeah.
out in the audience.
Hang
and
'em
the
up.
DEC
Yeah, right, yeah,
no,
yeah.
the temperature's real even. They're very receptive to what we're saying, and we don't hold any back. We don't lie to them. We tell them point blank what we think's going on out there, and what we think they're doing right and doing wrong. They may not agree with us, and then they'll give us reasons why they're doing it. But the cooperation there is really, really smooth things out as far as the communication.
People are listening to each other.
And then part of our responsibility is like what I'm doing here, telling people, spreading the word what the DEC is doing and why they're doing it.
Right.
Okay. In the past, the DEC say, okay, we're going to cut stocking by 200,000. And people say, well, why are you doing it? And I'm seeing fish all over the place, seeing bait all over the place. Now we got a better basis of where their science is taking.
One of the things that's kind of scared me over the last few years has been, and Bob, because you talk to these guys, you talk to a fisheries biologist, let's face it, these guys aren't getting rich, right?
No.
These guys, they fisheries biologists because they love it. They love the fish. They care about the resource, the whole deal. And one of the things that's frankly scared me over the last few years is so you go to those meetings and these guys, they're trying to run them out to the stake, and it's like, wait a second, time out here, guys. Let's not, if that's how we're going to treat those people, right? Why on earth would you want to do that as a job? So I think that, it's good that we're taking, we need to get the input and everything else, but, they're professional. This is what they do, and they're not doing it for the money. I can tell you that.
No, there's no doubt about that. And then the other thing from their perspective, they are really getting the understanding. We know what we're talking about. Yeah. We're not just a bunch of
you guys have been doing it a long time, and you're spending a lot of hours out there.
And we research a lot of what they're saying, so we understand what they're doing it and why they're doing it. Over the years, I've read a lot of papers, boring papers about why they're studying fish this way, why they're changing that way. So we got the lamprey problem everybody knows about right now. Why did it happen? How long is it going to be? Are we going to be involved with it? What are they doing now to try to control it? So
and that's super interesting. We did a show on that. I think it was last year, and people really, really got into it. And it's a big deal. And when you get out there and you bring in a fish that's got one stuck, you want to know more about it. So
right.
It's an interesting.
Myself just touched base on. I didn't know lamprey are basically like salmon. Mm-hmm. They come out of the tributary. They live for a year, only 1 year as an adult. They go back up, spawn, and they die. Yep. You just thought that they spawned and they come back out. Right. How many people didn't know that? Right. So from them you learn a lot of that stuff.
So one of the things, you're a representative, so you go in and you're meeting with the DEC folks and we talked a little bit about Steve Hurst. We had him on the show a few years ago. Really, really good guy. Mm-hmm. We had Corey Goldsworthy on yesterday from Minnesota. Corey's a big fisherman as well. It's fun to talk to those guys. But what's it like for you going out, walking out of that room? You go back to your harbor, your marina, and everybody wants to know kind of what's going on. So what's that like when you get to go out and talk to the captains about what you're talking about?
Well, a lot of times the first thing that happens is people say, well, they're doing this and they shouldn't be doing that. Okay, they shouldn't be cutting back on stocking, but the guys don't understand why. Okay, so for me, it's trying to bring the temperature of that person down and then explain to him why they're doing it. And most of the time, once they get an explanation that clears the air, the guys walk away not happy about it, but at least understand.
Did you ever think you'd hear your name as Bob Songin, the mediator? Did you ever think that was even humanly possible?
No, not in a million years. Not in a million years, but yeah. So it's been a real good experience. Now I'm getting older. I'm pretty mature in my career, so we're starting to Rob
get that next guys.
We're starting to get some new guys involved with this. Yeah. And one of the things I do with the DEC is I try to identify the younger guys coming up.
That's great.
Because I'm not going to be doing it forever. I'm 67 years old. If I fish another 5-10 years,
you got 20 years. Yeah.
But anyways, so we're bringing the new blood in because you can't keep listening to us. The ideas don't become fresh over a while. after a while. Even though you're trying to bring.
You're sounding pretty progressive in your old age, but I mean, this isn't. You know,
Yeah. They can still hear me yelling from the wall next to me.
No, I mean, it honestly, it sounds like a model program. I mean, really, I mean, it sounds like the way that it should be for a lot of fisheries in a lot of states. I mean, it really does.
Steve Hurst, the fisheries manager, is very, very open as far as taking our input. Probably, you know, I'm not saying that the ones in the past were bad, but he's a little bit more open than they have been. And then, of course, the top man is the man that's going to drive it too, you know. And we're hoping that he's set up a process here that's going to continue on when he moves on. Everybody moves on. You know what always happens is the best guys come in and they work, and once they get things all set up, then they're gone, they're retiring, and then you got to worry about what the new guy coming in is going to do. Now we're kind of actually seeing the people that are following Steve.
There's a plan. There's a succession plan there. Yeah.
Right. And we know, hope that this is going to keep on keeping. And like me trying to get the younger guys in, we're working on a succession plan for us older guys when we disappear from it, you know?
So that's, you're looking after the resource. So, I mean, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Yeah.
I love the resource. I always have.
Yeah.
You know, when I was a little kid, I used to beg my father to take me fishing, and I always dropped at catching that monster fish out. And when I was going fishing, and all I caught was little bluegill. Now you wake up in the morning, you can go out and catch the monster fish, and we want to keep that going. Right. You know, get more young kids into the resource, into utilizing the resource.
So your charter is real exciting charter.
Right.
Out of Wilson.
Oak Orchard.
Oak Orchard.
I fish Oak Orchard, Wilson only in May.
Yeah, I ran into you last year, so that's why I thought you were Wilson. But normally out of Oak Orchard.
Right.
Okay. And one of the things that you do, we've been talking about technology a lot here already today, and talking about young people and old people and what we all do. Young man, really, you're on the Facebooks all the time, and you're giving a report all the time, and it's a really great report. So
appreciate
tell
that.
people about how that comes to be.
How it comes to, or how it came. Short. Try and make a short story. Okay. The Sandy Creek. Another charter captain who was kind of retiring out of the business. Him and his wife were both very computer literate at the time, so I worked with them to start up what was called At the Oak. Okay, and that's what the podcast is now. And we would feed information to them, and they would actually take the time to post it. Well, as time went on, and we lost Joe and Shirley, I took that over 100%. And then once the social media came on, it became easy. You know, it was easier to, at the end of the day, flip it on and then describe what I'm catching. I can fish on, I can show them. Right. Okay, so, and you know, the reason behind it always for me has been the fact you want people to come up and enjoy the resource. You know, the guy that comes up to fish one day, he doesn't have any information gone to the cap and doesn't know where to start. So where's he start? He starts 100 foot of water. There may not be no fish till he gets to 400 foot of water. Right. Okay. So at least, and we all know it changes every day, but at least it gives people a starting point. Okay. And the best publicity for Oak Orchard or whatever harbor it might be is people come up and catch fish. When they go home, they're going to go home and say, you know, I went up there, I got information, we had a great time. I didn't catch as many fish as the captains did, or I may have beat some of the captains, okay? But at least he knew where to start, and now when he goes home, he says, you know, Oak Orchard's a pretty good place to go. Why don't you go there? Yeah. So some guys want to go salmon fishing for their whole life or for whatever amount of time. They don't have a boat. They're going to call up a captain, okay? Or they're going to call up a place for lodging. So it promoted the whole area and helped everybody, business-wise, the tackle shops, the gas stations, the lodging places, the captains, and that. So that's really the real reason behind it. So
Kind of another example of good things happen when people talk to each other, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
communication has had such an impact on success
Absolutely.
of this fishery.
Well,
of all
that's what this show is about. I
Right.
mean, that's what makes this show unique.
Right.
I mean, that's like you said, the seminar rooms are full. I mean, it's
Mhm. Yeah.
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 One of the other cool things, real quick here, we got about a minute left,
Okay.
but you do this report from the helm, so it's not like this is what happened yesterday.
Yeah.
Like, you're coming in and saying, "Hey, here's what happened right now." So we're talking about real time information.
Yeah. And I always get they always screw with me that my hair's all messed up at the end of the day. But yeah, a lot of times we're doing it from the helm. You know?
Right. So it's Real Excitement Charters, and you can find it on Facebook, Bob. Is there another way for people to get a hold of you if they want to reach out to you?
They can call me if they want. It's 585-733-5829. Get me on Facebook or email me. My webpage is realexcitement.com. Real easy. My address is on there. I get emails all the time and text messages. Guys asking me what's going on.
Very good.
So I never turn them away as long as I see them.
Awesome. Thanks.
Hey, it was a pleasure talking to you
Appreciate
guys.
it.
All right, that was a quick 20 minutes.
Yeah.
It goes fast when you get into it, man.
Right.
Yeah.
Goes fast. You have on.
Okay, guys. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to put our headphones on now. We have a guy coming in here going to talk to us virtually. Let's come in here. He meet us right here in the seat, and we had some stuff happen. Mr. Mark Romanack, how are you?
I'm doing a little better. I think you probably heard that I was under the weather, so I'm feeling not 100%. It's good that I'm not in New York right now, infecting all you poor people.
Yeah, as much as I'd like to have you sitting here with us, I'm glad that you're not right now. But I do hope you and Mari continue to recover quickly. I saw Mari in there, your better half. She's like your technical director. I started there getting everything set up for you.
It's true, and the fact that very rarely that we're ever very far apart. So, yes, Mary is my technical director today. This is, in fact, an accurate assessment. Yes.
Very good. We've got your son Jake, who's been kind of hanging out behind us for most of the weekend as well. We'll have Jake on tomorrow, and one of that's great about talking to you guys is you travel all over the Great Lakes. So a lot of the people that we bring in, this is their home port. Maybe they fish out of another harbor for a month, like Bob does, but they're dialed in on one spot. Where you guys kind of travel all over the place. So tomorrow's show with Jake is going to be about kind of the favorite destinations for you guys. But today we wanted to talk about steelhead with you, and that's something that is becoming more and more popular.
There's no question about it. Jake and I both like steelhead fishing because they're such an aggressive fish. I mean, quite honestly, when you get on good numbers of them, they're not difficult to catch. They're exciting when you hook one. They're in the air as much as they're in the water. The landed ratio is not very good. We figure that for every steelhead that we hook, about 50% of them come to the boat. A lot of them are going to jump and get away or break you off. It's all part of the game. But man, I tell you what, when they first strike, nothing pulls any harder than a steelhead. They are a rocket, and they're so much fun to hook up into.
Yeah, when they get going, it's a lot of fun. I kind of pulled this idea off your blog. So if people are looking for some more information on fishing and want to learn some stuff, you guys have an awesome blog with a lot of really, really good information. And I saw this article and I thought it'd be really good because it's one of the things that we keep hearing from people walking around the show is, hey, you guys going to talk about steelhead. So it's called Downrigger Tricks for Steelhead. Do you kind of just lay out a little bit about what you talk about in that blog?
Sure. Well, downriggers are deadly effective for steelhead, primarily because of the depth control. I mean, I think we all recognize that with the help of a downrigger, you can put the lure that you're trying to fish in any depth that it has to be at. So that's important right there. Our basic setup, it starts with something called a fish flash. And if you haven't seen one, it's made by Yakima Bait Company. It's a triangle-shaped flasher. And we hook that on the end of our downrigger rod. And I like the 4-inch ones. We don't need very big ones here. Our water's pretty clear here in the Great Lakes, so a 4-inch one is adequate. And then on the back of that, we're going to add a fluorocarbon leader. And I usually go with about 6 foot of a 15-pound test. Then I'm going to add a ball-bearing swivel. And then in the terminal end, I'm going to run a spoon. And I like Wolverine Mean Streak spoons. I've been using them for decades, and we've had very, very good success with them. That system, when we drop it down on the downrigger, gives you a little bit more flash than just a traditional spoon would. So that fish flash is rotating, creating flash, bringing fish into the pattern. And then when they get close and they see that spoon, it is game on. It really is a 1-2 punch that works exceptionally well for triggering these steelhead into biting in open water environments where they are literally, you've got to pull them into your rig. They can be anywhere.
So talk a little bit about that spoon, Mark, the mini streak. Why that spoon over some others? And obviously, a mini streak is going to have a certain size that's mini. Why choose that size in that situation?
Well, for those that might not be familiar with the mini streak, it's about a 3-inch long spoon. So it's not a small spoon. It's not a standard size spoon. It's in between those two sizes. And the reason why we adapt to that is because steelhead have relatively small mouths. They are aggressive. They eat alewives, they'll eat smelt, they'll eat a wide variety of forage fish, but they can't eat those great big alewives. And so they're looking for things that are more in that 2.5, 3.5 inch range. And so when you match the hatch with a spoon that's that size, it seems like you do very, very well. Of course, we like Wolverine mini streaks also because of the color combinations available to them. Chip Cartwright's an old and dear friend of ours. Not many people are any more talented than Chip is at painting spoons, and so their finishes are impeccable. And of course, when we're fishing steelhead, it's really bright, gaudy stuff. We like oranges, we like pinks, chartreuses. Really bright stuff seems to work the best on the steelhead.
And how do you pair that color up with your fish flash? Are you looking for comparative colors, contrasting colors? What does that look like?
I like to match them up. That's a really good point, Chris. I really like my flasher to be something in similar color to what my spoon is. So let's say, for example, I'm going to start out with a flasher that is chartreuse and silver. My spoon's going to have a lot of chartreuse and silver on it as well. So we like to pair the colors. That way, if the color is not working, we can start switching colors, and we can discern whether it's the flasher that's not working or the spoon that's not working. When you mix the colors, it becomes more difficult to determine that. So most of the time, we like to pair them up so that the flasher and the spoon are going to have similar colors.
You talked about swivels. How important is it to have a really good swivel when you're setting up something like this?
Well, you know, it's really kind of funny because people balk at buying a swivel. They have no problem spending $6 for a spoon. They have no problem spending $10 for a fish flash. They have no problem spending $1,500 for a Canon downrigger. But when it comes to swivels, they balk at spending $3 for a quality swivel. And that's what gets the job done. If you don't have a ball bearing swivel on there, if you're using just a crane swivel, a traditional swivel, you're going to cut your bites in half because you're going to cut the action of your spoon in half. I think it's critically important. So you have to have a good ball bearing swivel, and it doesn't need to be large. For steelhead, I recommend a size 2. If you go much larger than that, the weight of the swivel is going to impede on the spoon itself and reduce the action of the spoon. So we like to keep our leaders relatively thin. 15-pound test is the heaviest that we would typically run. In a small swivel, that allows that spoon, which is in this case is a relatively small spoon, to have maximum action.
Steelhead marker kind of renowned for being all over in the water column. I mean, when you guys are targeting, when you're specifically targeting steelhead, how do you start that process? So where do you start the hunt for where you think those fish are going to be at any given day?
Well, that's a good question. I think it really boils down to water temperature, and that's what a fish hawk is such a valuable tool for us. I'll give you a real life example. Jake and I just filmed a show not too long ago on Lake Erie. It was in the middle of the summertime, so the surface water is like 75, 76 degrees. Way too warm for steelhead. I think we all agree on that. So you start dropping the fish hawk down and you're looking for temperature. You're looking for water that's below 60 degrees ideally is what you're looking for. Well, in the summer in Lake Erie, a lot of places top to bottom is going to be 70-degree water. That's way too warm for steelhead. And so you won't find steelhead in those situations. So what we would do is move around with the fish hawk in the water looking for what we describe as pockets of cool water. You might go for a half a mile and have nothing but 70-degree water on the bottom. And then all of a sudden you hit a pocket of 55-degree water. When you hit that pocket of 55-degree water, it's game on. Those fish are going to be there, and they're going to be aggressive. You would never know that if you didn't have a fish hawk in the water. You would patrol, and maybe you go through and get a bite, save a waypoint, maybe come back and check that water, but you wouldn't know why those fish were there. And with the fish hawk, we can find those pockets of cool water and then concentrate on those pockets of cool water. You know, and the way we look at it, we say this all the time. I mean, sonar is important for us for marking fish, but if we didn't have a fish hawk, we wouldn't catch half the steelhead we catch.
We got Mark Romanack on the show right now. We're talking about steelhead fishing. So if you got a question for Mark, go ahead and put it in the comments and we'll get it to him. We've got about 10 more minutes with Mark here before we bring on Sergio Ferreira. Mark, one of the other things you talked about fish hawk, there's another really great piece of technology on your boat when you're going after this. That's the Canon Optimum Downrigger. And I know one of the tactics that you're using there is using that downrigger to change your depth as you're trolling and kind of just kind of mixing things up. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, what you're referring to is a function on the rigger that's called the cycle mode. And basically what that does is we can set the rigger to be at any depth we want it to be. And then we can also set it so that it will periodically raise and lower the downrigger ball. What we generally do is we'll set it in an increment of about 5 seconds. And we'll also set it in an increment of about 5 feet. So if you can picture your downrigger ball at 50 feet down, after 5 seconds, it's going to cycle up to 45 down. Then it's going to cycle back down to 50 down again after 5 more seconds. And while this seems like a very small thing, it is not small. It's huge. What happens is that ball moves up and down in the water column. Your spoon and your flasher is also trailing it. And so what steelhead will often do is they'll get behind your presentation and they'll follow your presentation. They're interested, but they're just not interested enough to eat it. And all of a sudden that ball moves suddenly and that spoon jerks away from them. And it's just like taking a ball of string away from a cat. They go crazy. They can't take that, and it triggers strikes. That cycling mode is something we use primarily during the middle of the day when the bite is otherwise very slow. Steelhead are just like any other salmon. They're going to bite better in the mornings and evenings in low light conditions. But during the middle of the day when it slows down, that cycling mode keeps those fish biting that we might not otherwise have caught. If you don't have a cycle mode on your downrigger, if you're not lucky enough to have an Optimum Canon downrigger, what I would recommend doing is camping your butt out right next to the downrigger and every once in a while raising and lowering.
Just running the switches. Sure.
Yeah, I grew up being that guy in our house. We didn't have a remote control, and I had to stand right by the TV and switch channels for my dad.
That actually explains a lot.
Somebody's got to do that. So that's one of the things, like, you've got kids out there and they're bored. That's a good job for them.
Yeah.
Mark, tell us a little bit. We've been talking. Are there other things you haven't asked?
I'm sorry, Chris, you kind of broke up on that one. Can you repeat that, please?
Kind of incite some bites when you're out steelhead fishing. We've talked about 3 or 4 different methods. Is there something else that we haven't talked about that you guys use to create some more bites in the water?
Yeah, it's called bottom track, and it's similar to the cycling mode, except for you can set your downrigger ball to be a certain distance away from the bottom. And then as the bottom contour naturally changes, the ball will track the bottom. The way I describe this is kind of like a beagle following a rabbit track. Wherever that bunny goes, that beagle is going to follow. In this case, your downrigger ball is set to be, let's say 3 or 4 feet off the bottom if you're trying to target maybe brown trout, for example, or steelhead in this instance. Once that depth changes, that ball is going to track the bottom. And so it keeps you glued to the structure. Now, not always are steelhead structure oriented. Sometimes they're very pelagic and they can be anywhere in the water column. But in this instance, what I was just talking about, where we were on Lake Erie, all of these fish were tight to the bottom because that's where the temperature was. And so these features like, cycling or bottom track are invaluable. And they're just not available on the average downrigger. That's why we've kind of gravitated towards the Canon. We really feel like it helps to catch more fish. And of course, it integrates very nicely with fish hawk, so that works nicely for us as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I wouldn't recommend letting your kid on the boat do that, or maybe gear. That's a job for bottom track. We have a question coming in, Jim Lemon. Jim, and we really appreciate it. He's been watching pretty much every show.
I think he might even be here.
I think he's got the snacks out, and he's like, I'm watching every second of this thing. Jim says, do you run that flasher at the ball or in line in front of the spoon like a Dodger?
Just like a Dodger, except for will be a little bit more space. When you're running a Dodger, normally you're only running your presentation about 20 or 30 inches behind it. When we're running this flasher, we're running it 6 foot back. So the flasher is on the end of your downrigger rod, 6 foot of fluorocarbon leading to your spoon. So the spoon and the flasher are 6 feet apart. And then I would normally run that flasher 25 to 40, maybe as much as 50 feet back behind the downrigger ball. Again, we're dealing with clear water. If I was fishing in cloudy water, very clear water conditions, I want that presentation to be further behind the downrigger ball. If the water was murky, I would run that whole rig as close as 20 feet to the downrigger ball.
And I think that's one of the advantages of Fish Flash, Mark, is it tracks straight, so you can run that long lead and not tangle everything. Is that right?
It does. And the beauty of it is because it's spinning on its own axis, all it does is spin. You don't have to worry about line twist or anything in that regard. All it's doing is creating flash, which is, again, of course, it's pulling fish from a greater distance. And then once those fish get closer, they're more interested in the spoon than they are the fish flash at that point, because, of course, the spoon is closely replicating food. And we've been doing this for a long time now, and I am amazed at how well that combination works. Every time we steelhead fish now, it's pretty much the same thing. 4-inch fish flash.
That's the go-to rig.
Mark, where are some of your favorite spots to go chase these steelhead?
Well, the beauty of steelhead is that you can get them on all 5 Great Lakes. But quite honestly, the numbers are basically in 2 or 3 different locations. Sheboygan, Wisconsin, and the Wisconsin waters of Lake Michigan's got a huge steelhead presence. Amazingly great steelhead fishery there. That typically takes place in June. Lake Erie all summer long can be extremely good on the Canadian side. Say from 4th of July all the way through August. On the Canadian side, we like the port of Wheatley. If you go to Lake Ontario, well, you just can't beat the summertime steelhead fishery there. It's offshore at that time of year. It's going to be out in 300 feet of water or more, so you got to run a little bit offshore to find them. But the port of Olcott is extremely good for steelhead. You're going to have anywhere from 5 to 15 hookups a day there. So those 3 ports are some of our favorites. There's other good ones, but those are 3 of our favorites.
And, everybody in this room is very excited about the upcoming season. We've had pretty unseasonably warm weather in the Great Lakes. A lot of these lakes that are typically frozen over this time of year are wide open, and people in this room are excited about getting out and going fishing. I'm sure you guys are getting ready and getting excited to go do some fishing. Where are some destinations that you guys are headed out for early on in the season to do some filming for Fishing 411?
I think probably one of the first places we'll end up is down in Michigan City at the southern end of Lake Michigan. And as you know, that's a good coho fishery. Those cohos are down there all winter. You get a mixture of other species. There'll be a few Chinook in the mix. There'll be a few lake trout in the mix, maybe even a brown trout or 2. So that's high on my list. And the reason we like it is because it's close to shore. So as you know, the weather in the spring is pretty unpredictable, a lot of wind. Michigan City is so close that you're fishing normally close enough to the shore you can throw a baseball and hit the beach. So you can get out even when it's windy at Michigan City. So that's probably going to be one of our first places we hit this year.
If people want to watch Fishing 411 TV, Mark, where's the best place for them to catch the show?
Well, if they don't have it on the cable or satellite, as far as the Sportsman's Channel or World Fishing Network, what I would recommend is a couple of on-demand places. Of course, we have our own YouTube channel, so you can go to Fishing 411 YouTube, watch the shows there free of charge. You can also see them at myoutdoortv.com. And Outdoor America is also offering stuff as well now. So you have those options as well.
Anything else for Mark, Trevor?
No, it's good. I mean, steelhead are probably my favorite fish. I mean, kings get all the attention, but man, it's hard to. They're psycho. I mean, it's hard to beat it's hard to beat a good steely bite.
It's a fun fight.
Yeah.
Mark, we really appreciate you coming on. I know it's been a tough week for you, and I know you'd rather be right here, but I just hope that you and your wife continue to progress and get better and beat this thing, because I know there's a few more shows left, and people are excited to see you guys and chat with you at the show, and I think people are also excited just to have you guys back on the water doing your thing. So appreciate you taking some time out here on your Saturday to stop and talk with us.
Chris, thank you very much. And Trevor, you're right. Steelhead are psycho. That's the perfect description. They are psycho.
They are. They're psycho. Yeah.
All right. Mark Romanack from Fishing 411 TV. Appreciate you here talking with us today on the virtual Great Lakes Fishing Show. Park, and our next guest is just hanging out here. We call bullpen, ready to come around. Why don't you come around this way?
We can take the cans off
We
now.
can take the cans off now. Now we got our guest sitting right next to us.
Whoa!
Careful of that chair.
There we go.
We're gonna turn your mic up here for
No
you.
problem. No problem.
Sergio Ferreira, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, guys. Appreciate to be here.
Yeah.
Appreciate the invite.
This is the first time we've ever had you on the Great Lakes Fishing Podcast, so it's exciting.
It is very exciting. I've always wanted to talk about the end of the lake that you don't hear too much about,
Yeah.
which is the North Shore side. You don't hear that one too often.
Well, that and just to be able to talk to some Canadians in person again now after the last couple,
No kidding, eh?
we can get you here without smuggling you across the border. You know,
Nobody needs to know about that.
Yeah.
So Sergio, first of all, just tell us about your charter and what you've got going on.
So I primarily fish out of Oakville, Bronte, Ontario, Canada. So a lot of people know about the Bluffs. So I'm on the west side of that. So it goes Bluffers, Port Credit. I'm at Bronte, so I'm pretty much straight south from St. Catharines.
Okay.
Straight north from St. Catharines,
Okay.
which would be about, if I wanted to boat from Bronte over to the bar, which everybody knows about, the famous bar, it's about 45 minutes, an hour, depending on water conditions and how fast you're boating, but it's a pretty good run. And like I said, both sides of the lake are really good fishing. It just depends on the time of the year, right? Like if you want to fish the spring, the south side's the time to be. 100%, that's where you want to be. As the water temps change, the fish start to move east, so then that takes you over to Bluffers, Coburg. I usually say Bluffers because that's really well-known spot on the Great Lakes. Is that clay drop-off is just, when they're there.
They're there.
There's no denying it. And then by mid-July, August, Bronte's known for their stagers, which is a really big fish getting ready to go up the river because we have Bronte Creek right there, and that's when you want to start running those big paddles, those meats, those J plugs, and that's what happens is you start getting those trophy fish and things like that on that side of the lake. But in the spring, if you want to fish on the north side where I'm from, you get a lot of, I'm going to say, a mix of good size of rainbows, really good size rainbows on that side of the lake as well. And you get lake trout are there down low, so it's a great spot. Depends where you want to drive from as well, right? If you're a person that lives on that side of the lake and you want to drive too far, you can fish on the north side 100%. If you're a person that likes to travel and you really want to get into Big Kings really fast first thing in the spring, you want to go to the south side. There's no hands down about that. It's the side you want to be on. Absolutely.
So we've had a couple of different people on from Bluffers, but again, you're the first one coming in from Bronte, so good to have you here to talk about this. And tell us a little bit about the structure. You talked about the drop off there out of Bluffers, and it's something that we talk about whenever we talk about that port. What's that structure like coming out of the harbor there in Bronte?
Pretty much, as soon as you come out of the harbor at Bronte, within, I'm going to say, honestly, you don't even have to power up. You're ready at 60, 70 feet. Like, it's pretty flat. If you want to get out into the deep waters, you're probably about 5-minute boat ride at 25 miles an hour. You're probably ready in 130, 140 easily. Very flat over there. We don't have any drop-offs or anything like that. But there's a spot there, they call it the Bronte Bowl, where the structure comes up really high. It's like a little bowl. And stagers like to sit around there. So it comes up and they sit on the outside of that ring. They call it the Bronte Bowl. It's hidden gem. Well, it's not really hidden because everybody knows about it now over the years. Like, secrets slip out, and fishing's really not a secret
There's
anymore.
no secret spots anymore.
No,
Exactly.
there's no secret spots. There's no secret rigs.
Right.
Back then, as you guys know, people wouldn't talk about, hey, how do you run meat? How do you run cut bait, stuff like that. Now there's YouTube videos. It's all out there. Nothing's really hitting anymore.
Yeah.
There's no secrets to fishing anymore. And to be honest with you, when you're out there, it's all about having a good time anyways. Yeah, the derbies are on. You want to catch the biggest fish, but chances are everybody's pretty much doing the exact same thing you're doing. They're running meat. They're running flies. They're running big paddles, short leads, long leads, things like that. Like, nothing really changes on that side.
You say there's no secrets in fishing anymore. There's lots of information out there. In a case like that, I think that's really interesting that we talk about that. How do you separate yourself as an angler? How do you, we talk about beating each other. Last night I think we were talking about beating the other anglers, but how do you beat the fish when everybody knows how to catch them?
So a lot of the things is people like to go out with their greens, the blues, and everybody loves to fish for some reason. You guys have seen it all. We've all seen it. There's a pack of boats in a certain area. Everybody loves to fish that same pack. And to be honest with you, that's the worst place to be because these fish are getting pushed so hard.
Beat up, yeah.
They're getting beat up. You're going to want to be on the outside of that pack. And you're going to, if they're running greens, blues, run something different, because it's like going to the restaurant seeing the same food all the time. You want to see a different color, different speed, different variation, different style. So you want to be different. So they're all running blues, greens, switch over to an orange, run something black, run something different. You want to be different.
And you're seeing success doing those types of things?
We had a really great season last year. Like, we cannot complain. A lot of the clients that went out with us, we caught quite a bit of fish, rainbows, salmon. Some of them we actually almost made the top 10 of the week for the Silver Salmon Challenge, which we participate in. Just a couple ounces short. We couldn't get into that top 10, but we did our best to get clients on the fish as best as we could.
Okay. You said, early in the season, it's kind of a steelhead rainbow type fishery. Then you've got those stagers coming in late. What's a midsummer out of Browning? What's that like? What are you chasing at that time?
You have a mix of all of them, actually.
Mixed bag fishing.
Yeah, you run spoons, you'll bump into Lakers, steelhead, you'll run into salmon. So it's a bunch of mix, but if you want to target the big kings, you want to run flies and the meat down low, 100%.
You talked about your depths. What is that bottom structure? What do you have down there? Is it sand? Is it clay? What do you got down there?
Sand. Not sand. It's like clay bottom, clay and mud. It's a big mix on there. So usually when they're staging, you want to be about a foot or two off bottom, because when they're getting staged, they have their pink bellies. They're rubbing against the mud. So you want to be right in that target depth. This way, you want to be at like a foot away. And that's where J plugs and flies are really good if you can target them good.
Okay.
And short leads on meat so you can control the height of them, right? Or even weighted steel when they're staging is really, really good too. Really easy math to do, everything like that.
When do those fish actually start staging? I mean, it seems like some ports now you're seeing those, quote unquote stagers earlier and earlier. I mean, when do you guys start to actually look for fish that are kind of starting to get ready?
I'd say the end of July, beginning of August, the temps there, you start to see the bait fish pushing in, you start to see all that. And that's kind of a tattletale. Hey, the water's really warm. You're waiting for the rain, for it to cool down, for them to go up the creeks. You start coming into your 70s, 80s, 90 feet of water right there. And the creek's just right there. There's a nice hole pretty much where all the...
So they can, when it's right, they shoot up pretty quick.
100%. You'll actually see them stacking up on the sonar like a cord of wood. They're just stacked there, sitting, waiting to go up. So...
We're visiting with Captain Sergio Ferreira. We're talking North Shore Lake Ontario salmon fishing, steelhead fishing. Sergio, tell us a little bit about your charter and what you do.
So we pretty much start fishing, I'm going to say May. We start pretty much May, June out of Brawny. Like, I always fish Brawny pretty much, because of the boat and everything. And we go out, pretty much the boat's always moving. Like, we don't stop. So we set all our dipsies. We set up our gas line. We always have meat out as well. And I don't lose that fish. And then I pass the rod over to the client, and they can have their fun fish. Like, they can enjoy the fish fight with them. And then if they want to keep it, we fillet it for them as well. So we take care of everything.
Running for a boat?
We run, actually, I was running a Sea Fox last season, a 26-foot Sea Fox, which we did a pretty good sized group. We can do 5 guys, no problem. And this year we're actually going up into a Lures tournament series, 30-footer.
Okay.
So we're changing our style, changing our boats. We can accommodate bigger groups and have more space.
Wider beam.
100 more billion. Right, you want to be out there and have a good time.
Comfortable. Yep.
And with having a good time on our boat, safety's a priority all the time. Like, fishing, catching fish is number 2. Number 1 is always a safe time. You want to go back to land the way you came onto the water, right?
So one of the things that Canadian captains run into per how do you kind of
So, we have our limits on rods. We're different for us. So for a group of guys, I'll usually run 6 to 8 rods. It's really comfortable. I don't have to worry about things tangling because everything's pretty spread out. And I'll always put out, I'm going to say, is my meats. My meats, followed by spoons, followed by flies. Spoons up high to get those rainbows and things like that. And that's what we start doing. We have our spots that we're used to. We know where the fish are, because even before charters, I'm always watching the winds, right? As you know, the winds, top current, bottom current are different. So we're always watching where the winds go. Winds have your temps. Your temps have the fish that you want. And that's when it comes down to using the fish hawk a lot. is we're staying on top of fish because we know where the patterns are happening just by watching the weather and having a fish hawk all at the same time.
So you're pretty much running a mixed spread all year. I mean, so you've got meat and spoons just because you've got a multi-species fishery, and you're trying to
100%.
capitalize on all those species at the same time.
100%. So we don't just stick to one program.
Not just running a straight meat program. You're running
Everything's mixed.
spoons stay in the spread all year, as opposed to some ports. They might fish spoons in the spring and then they go away for 60 days or something.
Yeah.
Like that.
No, we always run a whole mix. You want to increase your chances of fishing, catching fish. You want to be able to target a wider variety instead of just one set of species.
Right.
So that's how we do it.
You gonna make it over there, Chris?
But, if I'm not hitting the cough drops all the time, I'm struggling right now.
I got your back, man.
I'm a warrior.
Yeah.
We're going to keep going. Tell me about the electronics you get on board and how you're kind of using them as a system to put more fish in the boat.
So we run a lot of Simrad with the Airmar TM165, and I have one sonar. I have strictly just C maps, so I can see bottom composition, hard, soft. As you know, the new C maps, it's color coded, works really great.
That's cool.
And then we have our Airmar 165 TM set up with the 200 kilohertz cone because we find that has a better return. I'm not too worried on what's the outside of my boat. I want to know what's behind
You
the
want to
boat.
see that resolution, yeah.
I want to see everything that's happening behind the boat. And then I'll usually put it within a foot or two range. And for example, morning, I'm going to use shorter leads because, as you know, salmon are a lot more aggressive in the morning. So you want to use shorter leads, get them come in, get them fighting, get them going. And then as the sun goes out, we start to go deeper. But that being said, there's a fine line of going deeper with a long lead and a short lead. So when you're getting past that 85 to 80 to 100 foot mark, you don't want to have 40, 60 foot lead because your ball is going to be down there, but
you're talking the lead from the ball, the stretch from the ball is what you're talking.
100%. Yeah.
Okay.
So, for example, you're down 120 feet. If you're having a 40, 50 foot lead, your cannonball is going to be down there, but your meat rig or fly and paddle are going to be way up there.
Tangletown.
Exactly. You're going I'm not getting. So you're going to see streakers and stuff. You're not able to produce results because, the ball's there, but you don't have your rigs there. Your stuff you want there, ready to go.
All right, we got a question here from Nick Cook, and Nick has asked a few of the captains this question. I think he wants to know how active you are on the boat. He says on slow days, how often do you change out the gear?
So, great question. We hear that quite a bit. So what I like to do is, we all have that go-to rig, right? Everybody has their favorite spoon, their favorite fly, their favorite flasher. So I always put that out right away. For example, GRC, I'm going to use a blue-green squid rig on the Dreamweaver Glow Frog Spin Doctor. Like that's 100% our go-to first thing in the morning. Shorter leads. If the fish aren't biting, I don't set everything up the same all the time. I have that one set of go-to, which is usually those two flies and the meat rig. If I start seeing streakers, before I even touch anything, I'm going to speed it up. I'm like, these guys want faster speeds today. They want a different style of roll. That doesn't work. I'll slow down. I'll go the opposite way. I'm like, okay, that doesn't work. Once again, I'm still leaving the rods in the water because as soon as I start taking rods out, it's a whole different ball game there. That doesn't work. We go over to, I'm like, okay, you know what? Let's try something different today. Let's go really long lead. That doesn't work. Then I start changing colors that I used the season before. At the end of the season that was working, so I go back. So I start to do a restart.
So you're playing with speed and lead before you're playing with color.
100%.
Which I think that's kind of interesting. And
Right, I think it's super interesting. That's something
because it's efficient.
We talked to Lance on Thursday, Lance Valentine, and that's pretty much exactly what he preaches. But I think, to your point, Nick's question is a question that he's been asking a lot of captains. Is a question that a lot of your customers, I'm sure, ask you when they call you before they book you.
Yeah.
It's like, well, how often do you change the gear? And, Lance will sit here and tell you, well, that's like the 7th or 8th thing that you should be doing. What you're talking about is really what you should be doing right away, is trying to find what the fish want to speed, because Lance is saying if you don't have that speed right, you don't have, you're not doing the presentation right, what you have tied on to the end
doesn't going to matter.
So it's super interesting. It's a great point, and the way that you're doing it. I think if you look at the things that Lance Valentine's teaching and you talk to a lot of captains, that's really what you should be doing first.
Yeah, the first thing comes down to speed. If it was catching fish yesterday, chances are it's going to catch fish today. The only thing is the current change, temperature change. All that has various factors in there, and that's what you want to find out. You want to let the fish tell you what they want that day. That's what you want to do.
Yeah, don't fish memories.
Right.
Yeah, fish what's going on today,
Exactly.
not what what you fished yesterday.
And to Trevor's point too, it's a lot more efficient to mess with that speed than to
I don't have to
rig 10 rods.
Yeah, I'm not pulling my lines out of the water to re-rig. I'm just it's like, well, let's try this first, and then if you have to do that, you have to do that. But
that's usually our very last resort. When you have to start pulling rods, that gets messy. You start to lose track of weight. What did I have there before? Did I already run this? Because it's all these rods, you really have a hard time tracking what you had, where you had it, how deep you had it. So speeds is the first thing you want to play with right away. Speeds and leads.
Yeah.
That's
speeds and leads. I can remember that.
That's really good.
I like that. Speeds and leads.
Well, you brought up flies, and I see the shirt you got. It says GRC Trolling Flies. The booth is right across the hall from us here. Tell us a little bit about that. First, just tell us about your partnership with that company.
So Pat pretty much started out really good. Like, he started off in a semi-truck there as a hobby, and he grew to where you see it today. He makes a really great product. Honestly, I've been running his flies, and that's actually pretty much all I run on my boat is all GRC, because even after taking a beating, catching fish, his product still stands. Like, the strands are not rigs. His squid rigs aren't drying and cracking, which we've all seen in the past. Squid rigs do that. And then he's got exclusive license for E-chip now, and that's a really big game changer, especially on flies with that electric current coming out of that E-chip. That is a great game changer. Really good game changer.
You talk a little bit more about the different products and what you'd find if you're going to go to their website, grctrollingflies.com.
Yeah, they have all the colors. They have a tournament series, they have a live series, they have a glow series, they have regular meat rigs, they have squid rigs, they got it all there. If you guys are interested in what I like to run, he actually has a pro pack set up for his pro staff of our go-tos. So if you go open my pro pack, you're going to see the blue-green squid rig, you're going to see the glow goes. Pretty much all my go-tos are there. So a lot of the people sometimes ask, hey, what do you run? And I say, well,
you can direct them there. And
the pro pack's there, and he actually throws a really good deal. So you get 3 meat rigs and 3 flies to start off through his combo packages. And it's great. Great way to get started. Very great way.
All right, we got a question here from Jim. And again, Jim, very active on the show. I think he's probably watched every segment. He wants to know if you ever pop riggers to get a reaction bite.
So I watch the fish finder. If I see streakers, I won't actually pop the rigger. But if you have Scotties, they pivot.
Yeah.
So
you picked the boom.
I like to pick the boom up.
There's a pro tip. That's a pro tip.
I like to grab that boom and shake it. And a lot of the times I'm going to say
shake it like a Polaroid.
Yeah, I just yank on it. I'll hold it there. I'll put it back down, and then I'll yank it right back. You got to go slow so you don't pop the rod. I've done that.
So we're not going to shake it like a Polaroid.
We're going to pull it. That's a pro tip. I know that. I mean, as soon as you said that, I'm like, oh yeah, I can see that working.
Right. So you change the action, speed, everything right there on one stop just by pulling up that boom.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say out of 10 times when I do that, I'm going to say 5 times a fish will hit as you're pulling it up, because now they're chasing it. They're
accelerating away.
They're accelerating right at it. As soon as you start getting to that pivot point, watch that rod, because it's going to pop right away. Like, it's phenomenal. Yeah. I actually seen that an older captain that comes out of report, Jay Wilson from Tamo Charters, he actually taught me about that. So it's really cool. Like, where are you guys from? Like, everybody's different from their ports. But out of Brawny, like, we have a close group of guys. For example, me and Matt Bowman, Jay Wilson from Tamo, and Matt from Real Knockoffs. We work as a team, because at the end of the day, we're all there to make the clients have a good time and catch fish. We're not really competing with each other. It's not a tournament like that. Yeah. You're out there to have fun and create memories, because that's what fishing really is all about. Because at the end of the day, you walk away with memories, and that's really all you got to take from it. Memories, you learn things on the water, you have a great time with family. You're not going to talk about so-and-so. You're going to talk about how many fish you caught, what happened on the boat, what we were doing. That's what it all comes down to, right?
Yeah, Bob Songin was just on the show basically saying the same thing. He's like, I want people to go home and say, I had a great time. And in his case, it'd be an Oak Orchard. In your case, it'd be Brawny. He wants people to go back to their hometown and go, this is where you should go 100%. If you want to go fishing.
100%.
Working together and kind of marketing together is going to be a really good thing for all of you guys.
Because you get along and people are like, oh, wow, they're not butting heads. And people don't want to be in a negative environment like that. Nobody wants to be part of it, right? So.
Yeah. Let's talk about that a little bit. You seem, I'm just kind of watching you here today and how you've been interacting with people. What's it like being on the boat with you during the day out there doing some fishing?
I'm pretty much the same way as you see me here at the booth. I like to talk, chat. People have questions. I encourage you to ask questions, because we all started, whether you take it or not, we all started as bass fishermen. That's how everybody started. it's true. Everybody
we're all reformed bass fishermen. Is that what you're saying?
That's how we all started. So I go out, I tell them what I'm going to do. And a lot of clients are like, hey, why are you using that paddle? I'll tell them this is our morning rig, this is the way it works, and things like that. They'll talk about gear, and I'll talk about weather systems. And a lot of the times, believe it or not, they'll see the Fishhawk screen, and they'll see the probe, and they're like, is that an underwater camera? That's probably one of our number one questions. Like, I'm like,
What
no,
is that thing?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I'm sure you guys hear that a lot too.
Mhm.
And I'm like, that's actually your speed and temperature probe. That helps us dial in the fish. So your sonar up top says you're doing 2.4, 2.8, but at the bottom, your meter rig could be spinning at 1.5. And unfortunately, you're not going to catch fish that day. You're going to have streakers, people running away, like the fish running away from it. And it's going to be a horrible day on the water.
I just tell people it's just like a spy balloon, but it's underwater, sit up in the air.
Don't shoot it down. Yeah.
So now's a bad time to go for a hot air balloon, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, I didn't think of that.
Sergio, I know this probably isn't the only partnership you have. Is there anybody else that you want to talk about before we let you?
Yeah, I work with our torpedo. So we use a lot of their swivels. They're really good, easy to handle. There's
Weighted steel seems to be coming on strong.
Oh,
like
weighted steel.
every port. Yeah.
You run weighted steel down the chute. It's great. It doesn't kink. 100 feet out, 20 feet down. It's really easy math, right? It works good. You have that fluctuation because it acts like a whip, so it's in and out at different depths, which then helps trigger bites.
Right.
All of our wire divers are torpedo 19 strand because it's been proven time after time that it stays strong, doesn't fall apart. So we use a lot of torpedo stuff as well. That's one of our big things. I work closely with Powell Castings from Canada. They make their cannonballs, and I use their Titan series. So we use the 18-pound balls. So when we're fishing deep, we want to make sure our blowback is completely minimized, especially down deep waters.
Right.
What you want to do.
Yeah, you got to get down there. You need some heavy weight.
100%. Because the last thing you want to be, because we've actually caught fish 230 feet down, and down there is a whole different ball game. So that's when you want to use a short lead, really heavy ball, and you want to stay nice and close because
Stay vertical.
100%.
People want to get a hold of you, maybe ask some questions, or maybe even book a charter. What's the best way for them to reach you?
If you guys go to our website at trollingrealdeepsportfishing.com, we have a contact form there. My phone number's there. If you find us on Facebook at Trolling Real Deep Sport Fishing, usually you can send a message or message me on there, and I have no problems answering. I pretty much answer questions. You find us on Instagram. You can find us doing daily updates on TikTok and Instagram of how that trip went.
Our first TikTok captain.
There you go.
Actually, it's
Look
funny.
at him. He doesn't have gray hair.
I know. He actually has hair. So that's
He has
even.
hair and it's not gray.
Yeah.
My kids aren't that old yet. That's the problem.
Right. Yeah. Oh, you'll get there. Yeah.
I'll get
God
there,
willing,
I'll
you'll
get
get there. Yeah.
So
Very good. Sergio, I really appreciate you coming on, man. Taking some time out to come talk.
problem.
This is fun meeting you and fun having you on the show.
I appreciate it, guys.
Yeah,
Thank you very
thanks, man.
much.
Good to see
All
you.
right, Sergio Ferreira from Trolling Real Deep Fishing, and he's out of Browning Harbor in Ontario, over on the northwest. Yes. We'll be back on this evening at 5 o'clock Eastern. We're going a little bit early because tonight the show closes at 7 o'clock. So Captain Casey Prisco will be hosting. We're going to have Pete Alex on. We'll have Rick Hajecki on. A lot of good guests this afternoon, though. We're wrapping up here. Rob, you're one of our last ones here.
All right. Hey, what's happening? Thanks for inviting me.
On the show. After Rob, we'll have on Roger Hincliffe, and that'll be it for this afternoon. But Rob, what's going on? How's the show going for you?
It's been fun. So I always thought that, besides being a show, and there's retail here and manufacturer, really so guys that you don't normally see throughout the year, or maybe you only see once, twice a year.
Mm-hmm.
Or I noticed. I mean, there's people we haven't seen in 4 years now.
Right, yeah, with
through the whole,
COVID.
COVID crap. But the other thing I've seen is like they started the show just like up their games.
My stuff up. I mean,
it used to be like, oh yeah, you go in a room and talk to people, whatever, some baits and a bucket. Yeah. Now everybody's got a presentation. We're rolling video. We're doing, I think the level of
the seminar stuff's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it's gotten a lot.
But that's
better.
what they push that whole thing, the learning school. Everything's fishing seminars. It's probably obviously the biggest fishing show. It's not just an outdoor show, but it's really
It's kind of
geared
a
towards
quality
fishing.
versus quantity now.
for sure.
I was telling Trevor, I was walking through the hallway outside of the door for the salmon school during lunch. The door was open. It's packed in there. I mean, it's amazing what you see. People are here to learn. They're willing to invest money. They're willing to invest time to become better anglers.
Yeah, I mean, that's a long day in there. I mean, you're spending 6-8 hours in a school type set. I mean, I think there's 175 guys in the salmon school.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the walleye school numbers are, but
I think it was full. I mean, it was the same deal.
That's
It
pretty
was a lot of
crazy,
people, yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So people are serious about getting good at this, and I think part of that is testament to guys like you. I mean, they see people like you being successful, and they go, "I want to do that. I want to be part of that fishery. I want to get out there and do that." What's that mean to you?
I don't think there's any secrets out there. I think that we've been doing this long enough. I think that there was a time period. I think when we all started, there was always like a secret society type thing. Everybody was tight-lipped about things, didn't really want to show off baits. And we almost have gone the complete opposite route with that. I'm a big part of Lake Ontario United. And, you know, that's always been a huge information highway, you know, for guys to link up and talk. And, but yeah, I
All right,
And we're back.
Yeah, that's we were talking about it. I don't know if you guys heard, but sometimes you do these virtual shows. Technology is great. It brings us a lot of things, but sometimes it causes us some problems. And we're back. So
Apparently, I attract the gremlins. So.
yeah, we did.
we're with the lead gremlin right now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I hope everything got out there up until the point where we started talking about brown trout. That's when I really started noticing things. But Rob, you know, like we were saying, one of the great things about the show is the education end of it and getting out there and helping people catch fish. You're doing a seminar this weekend on brown trout on Lake Ontario. Tell us a little bit about kind of
Seems to kind of be the unlucky day that everybody chooses to start fishing and launch boats. But we shoot for April 1st, you know, and we're fishing inside of 25 foot of water. I was saying before that, you know, I think that we all kind of got our start on the Great Lakes by, you know, chasing after those brown trout because we could
Easy
do
to
it.
get to.
Yeah, we could do it from any boat known to mankind. I mean, you throw a rowboat out there, as long, you know, with an electric motor, and you're chasing after them. I remember being a teenager, you know, just jumping in my buddies, you know, open bow, and that's how we started doing it. And it doesn't take a lot of spec to do so.
I mean, about the spring brown trout fish. Fantastic. What's the summer fishery like? Is it a thing? Are there people out doing it in the summer, or are we shifting other species?
I think that where I'm located on the lake, I'm west central part of the lake. I'm east of Oak Orchard, but yet I'm west of the Genesee River. We have phenomenal brown trout fishery there, both springtime and summertime. We tend to fish kings as long as kings are around, but the nice thing is we have that backup plan. That backup plan sometimes can be that brown trout fishery, and it can be impressive. Really, it's about, for me, we try to find temperature. Temperature's a big deal. You usually see one in the bottom, our starting point, and we'll look for those fish. It tends to be a structure related to one loves the bottom, and the other one tends to but they're only down about, you know, midway in the water. It's very different. Yeah, I mean, we all like our trout fish.
Tactic wise, you're doing a lot of spoons for your summertime browns, or
100%. Yeah. It's a spoon bite. I'm diversified for the most part. We're running board lines, whether it's, you know, coppers or cores off of big boards. We're running divers. We're running riggers. You know, we always have a mix of things happening. But yeah, it's a spoon program. Obviously, spoon brands change depending on what we're doing. But yeah, they're definitely eating spoons. So,
what are your kind of some of your favorite colors and some of your favorite spoons to throw at them when things are going like that?
I find that it depends on what kind of bait they're going after. So, I'm a big believer that brown trout love chartreuse. So a lot of, if you went through my favorite lineup, you know, you'd see a lot. You'd see a lot of chartreuse. But certainly, you know, if they're getting fat and heavy on a goby diet, we certainly really lean on that chartreuse. If we notice more of like an emerald shiner, we start throwing a little bit more greens in there. Once again, those two different fish, are they bottom dwelling fish or are they suspended in the thermocline fish? That kind of changes my ideas on baits too. Certainly those bottom dwelling, they're go-be eaters. So, a lot of those patterns, naturals, and then, once they're suspended, then a lot of the king spoons we're seeing,
work up for those suspended fish.
Yep.
Well, I know Captain Pete, Alex, I know he claims that browns are his favorite to eat, right? Which that was kind of news to me. I was, he kind of surprised me there. So I was like,
we have a lot of customers that like smoking them. Yeah. So, salmon seemed to be the number one for the, smoking, but yeah, they seem to be number two on the list is browns. So.
I want to talk to you about kind of where those depths are, though. You said, they're either at the bottom or they're suspended.
Yep.
When you're out fishing, do you find that, you might pick some off the bottom, you might pick some off suspended, or on that given day, either on the bottom or they're suspended?
So if we're hunting water, we're trying to find those brown trout. The number one thing that I try to do is basically try to find that intersection of where 60, 61 degree water hits bottom.
Meets bottom.
Yeah,
Okay.
like that's my starting point. That could be in 40 foot of water. That could be in 80 foot of water. But that's the number that I'm kind of shooting for, and it's not an exact science. I mean, it could be 62 degrees. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But more or less, that number tells you they're not any farther in than that. You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
So. And then really the trick is where are they in there? So I was mentioning the fact that you kind of have two different fish. If we find those fish, obviously we're happy. We're fishing for them. I love to see those fish in that 40, 50, 60 foot of water. It's good for my gear. I don't have a problem fishing 30 foot down, dragging spoons and 65 degree water. Those fish are very active and will come up and into that. With the suspended brown trout, I mean, we're probably, let's say we snuck out just a little bit, maybe they're in 80 foot of water, maybe they're in 100 foot of water, and we're fishing kind of if we follow that magic line out, if we had, let's say 61,
that's where they're going to be
foot,
suspended. Yeah.
Now we move that out a little bit. You know what I mean? Now we're 60.
So you're sliding
over
you're sliding
100.
You're sliding out as much as you're sliding up.
Correct.
Yeah,
so now we're out in let's say 100.
Sure.
And now we're down, 60, 70 foot fishing the same fish.
Got it.
So, and
Interesting.
Yeah, and like I said, we have a tendency to fish more of our bait patterns, our alewife patterns, our
makes sense. That's the forage out there. Yeah, right. Yeah.
They're typically not be eaten right.
Matching that out there
Exactly.
and they'll be for a while.
Yeah.
Tell about wrap up here about your charter and how people can get a hold of you.
So I own Legacy Sport Fishing. Obviously on the internet, legacysportfishing.com. Lots of links on the page. You can find me on Facebook. Follow me on Facebook. We do obviously a lot of seasonal updates, and try to keep people involved and informed with the Charter Association too. So, yeah,
it's fun having you.
Yeah, thank you.
Have you
Thank you.
Again.
Thank you.
Really, really
Good to see you. We got to talk
I-
about the tournament later too. So
All right,
we'll do that. I'll swing over.
I apologize about bringing the gremlins.
Yeah, way to bring the internet gremlins with you. Yeah.
Thank you guys.
Take
him with you, would ya?
From Legacy Sport Fishing. Appreciate having him on the show. And final guest of the afternoon, it's Roger Hincliffe. Roger, come on over. How you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing way too good and better
Yeah.
than I deserve.
Well,
I think we're all. I think we
a lot of
could.
people in that room in that same spot right now.
Right on.
Yeah, it's a fun room, and there's a lot of excitement here. And
For
a lot
sure.
of people just doing cool stuff. I think that's a good thing, and people excited about getting ready to go out and do some fishing.
Right.
I know
Fishing's therapy.
Right.
Right.
I know
Fishing's
you've been fishing a lot lately.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I actually used to fish more,
Yeah.
but I just came back from the West Coast, and I was fortunate enough to get out for a day before we got 2 inches of rain and was able to get a trophy steelhead. So,
Yeah. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I'm known in the world for steelhead float fishing, and I got a real nice trophy fish on a a WFO rubber worm, black with a chartreuse tail. Not what most people think for steelhead, right? They're thinking pink worms. So
why were you running it?
Well, because everybody else runs pink.
Pink worms.
A lot of it has to do with the water clarity too, right? So
go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, tell me about this fish. I keep hearing trophy. Like how?
What is it? What's a
Well,
trophy?
What does that mean?
Well, it was over 20 pounds,
Okay.
and yeah. So out west, the wild ocean run steelhead, you can't bring them out of the water. They got to stay in the water. You can only handle them for a few seconds, get a couple photos, and let it go. And so all you can do is take measurements and estimate the fish, and it was trophy fish.
Yeah.
So I was happy to catch it.
Sounds like fun.
Yeah.
So one of the things, from our perspective, from the fish hawk perspective, we're selling a lot more product in the West Coast now than we ever have in the past. And we've always been Great Lakes. But one of the things that I think is really interesting is the differences in fishing tactics, fishing mentality from the West Coast to the Great Lakes.
Yeah.
What can you tell us about? Is that my imagination or is that real?
No. So let me educate you.
Yeah. Please do.
So I'm from Michigan.
Okay.
I've been fishing Erie Tribs and Steelhead Alley my whole life. And out here, we run a 6, an 8, 11, maybe a 15-gram float. Out there, I was running 1 ounce, which is 35 grams. So they're using 35 and 40 grams. But the reason for that is they've got some big rivers, like real rivers. Like
Columbia River. Yeah.
Just the velocity, right?
Mm-hmm.
They got boulders the size of this table.
Sure.
And full transparency, I've been rowing a drift boat my whole life. No way am I rowing.
Yeah.
I got buddies that do that for me because, there's some real rivers.
They're pulling,
and so because they're moving so fast and you've got to get down because you've only got so much of a window for a bite window, and they use bigger stuff and they use larger profiles.
And are you center pinning there? Are you center pinning here? Or?
Yeah, I center pin. That particular fish I caught on a spiral wrap bait caster.
Mm-hmm.
I was fishing some prototype rods that Lamba Glass and I have designed.
Okay.
Was fishing those, but it was on a bait caster.
Okay.
But I do a lot of center pinning. I pull plugs. I throw spinners. I have a seminar later today on spinners, so whatever it takes to put fish in the net,
You do it.
Is that kind of where is that the gift of doing what you're doing is pulling those spinners? Is that something that I just remember as a kid? It was just go out there and pull some spinners.
That's a good question. Really about the spinner bite. I definitely use it as a tactic early in the fall, and the purpose of that is if you don't have enough, because like in Michigan, we'll use Michigan as an example because that's where I'm from, but we have the Manistee strain run fish. It's a spring run fish. They don't have to come up in the fall. That's what most people don't realize. They don't have to come up. And so if God blesses us with the right weather and the right temps and rain to bring us fish up early, but early, late September, early October, there's fish in the rivers because every river has its own run clock, but there's not a lot of them. And so I use a spinner as a searching bait, as a searching tool to find fish. And then once I locate fish, then because an average steelhead pot is going to be 15 to 25 fish in the Great Lakes, where out west you might get a pair, of wild fish. But anyways, once I've located them, then, I can anchor up and maybe use some more finesse techniques. And then the other time I use spinners would be later in the season and actually in the winter time. The water gets so cold here, out west, it very rarely gets below 38 degrees. Here, that's warm water for the winter, right? So what I like to do is when we're at that 33-degree water period and the fish are basically like in a lethargic coma, because they're so cold, I'll use a number 5 silver blade, an actual bigger blade, to try to wake that fish up out of its sleep. So a spinner can be used year-round, in my opinion.
So.
You know, two other things, you know, and this is kind of the West Coast, East Coast thing, right?
Yeah.
Scent. So scents seem like they're just way more prevalent in use in Western rivers.
So I'll give you my take on scent.
Yeah.
So a fish can smell in parts per billion. If people can't wrap their head around how good that is, that's 1,000 times better than my German short-haired pointer. And this is what cracks me up about the Great Lakes. So the fish use their nose to navigate. The fish use their nose to avoid danger. The fish use their nose to find food. But mysteriously, when they get into the river, they no longer use their nose. Who believes this crap, right? And so what I'm trying to tell people is every time you touch something, you deposit L-sarin. So in 1987, some Canadian scientists took human skin cells and created a homeopathic solution. They deposited into the river. The salmon stopped migrating. Now, did they say that's Roger Hinchcliffe and he's going to eat me? No. Then they took bear pelts and put them in the river. The fish stopped migrating. Did they say Yogi the bear is going to eat me? Of course not. And so I feel like finally, through education, people in the Great Lakes are finally realizing that scent can help your catch rates. And I don't care what you're fishing for. And so in my seminars, I explain to people out west in a retail location, there will be scents from the floor
That's
all
what I
the
see.
way to the ceiling.
I mean, aisles of it.
Aisles of it.
Yeah.
And you come here and people, they're just trying to sell me something. But for the salmon trolling guys or the walleye guys, you'll see them come up to the fly or the spoon and then they refuse it. Well, that's because it didn't smell right. So it's not the end all be all.
Yeah.
But I will tell you, from bass to steelhead, walleye, whatever, scent can actually help you catch more fish, in my opinion.
You really see that, and I noticed that too. That's what maybe really pay attention is just like you said. You go into a retail fishing retail store in the Western United States, and there's a significant amount of shelf space dedicated to just to scent, and you just don't see that here. The other question I have, maybe it's not a question, but observation maybe is, it kind of makes me, when Chris and I were out in Oregon last June and doing sampling some of the fishing there, but coming home, it makes you kind of appreciate what you got here. I mean, if you're a Michigander, right, or the Great Lake, I mean, we've got some fantastic. I mean, we're fishing Pacific fish, but we're fishing them in the Great Lakes.
We stock 5.2 million steelhead yearly. So we have the world's largest steelhead population on planet Earth, but we also have the largest angling population for steelhead on planet Earth. And that's all the more reason for scent, because you're fishing for overfished fish.
Sure.
Because most folks don't realize that fish have memory spans and they get educated. Because most folks release their steelhead. So once you caught that high metabolism fish, right, which has the shortest memory span, or you got a slow metabolism fish, which has the longest memory span. Every time you catch one of those fish, you just took a willful biter out of the deal. But what's great for us is if you get another high water event or another weather event, it brings you more fresh fish, more willful biters. We are truly spoiled rotten
in the Great Lakes.
In the Great Lakes. And my friends out west, for sure.
I think they're jealous.
Well, I'm not going to publicly say that and get myself in trouble, but I will say that I think, I've had people say I'm jealous, because you can still have a 30, 40 fish steelhead day in the Great Lakes.
Right.
I mean, years ago, before steelheading got real popular on Ohio trips, I used to have 100 fish a day. You know what I mean? That's insane. But out there, you're fishing for 1 to 3 bites a day. A day.
Yeah.
And like, if you get that bobber down and you were late to the party on the hook set.
Well, I mean, you always think of as a kid, I always dreamed of the Alaskan salmon trip.
Yes.
The Alaskan salmon trip now in some rivers, you get your tag.
Yeah.
You catch your fish, you're done.
Yeah.
That's one fish. Well, we're going to go out on Lake Ontario in May on the bar, and we're going to get 30 or 40 bites a morning.
Yep.
I mean, that
now see, like on the trolling game out west, they get 1 rod per man.
Exactly.
In
Barbless
Michigan,
hooks.
Yeah. In Michigan, you got 3 rods a man.
Yeah. Right.
So seeing 11, 12 rods.
Doesn't happen.
You don't see that out there, but you see it in the Great Lakes.
Yeah.
So we're spoiled. World-class fishery, no doubt.
So we've got a lot of people that watch. They're in the trolling game. That's what they do.
Yeah.
But they see things like what you're doing, and great. I can leave my boat if it's put away for the year. Or, maybe I just want to go fishing for an hour after work. I don't have to deal with putting the boat in, taking it out, doing all that kind of stuff. How would somebody who has been a troller and they want to get into this game, what kind of advice would you give them?
Yeah, pretty straightforward. I mean, at the end of the day, so the fly guys call it a strike indicator. The hardcore center pin guys call it a float. At the end of the day, it's a bobber.
It's a bobber.
Right?
I knew we were going
Yeah, I mean, come on, man. It's a bobber. I mean, my first fish was on a bluegill, was on a bobber, and it was a bluegill. But I would tell them, at a minimum, get a 9.5 foot rod. That's a great rod, all around rod. Now, if you have a larger stream, maybe a 10-6 float rod, right? You just need a float, right? A bobber, and you're going to need some split shot to weight your float down. Then you would run a tiny swivel and then a fluorocarbon leader. And then from there, the sky's the limit. You could use a jig, right? You could use a leech, a night crawler, a bead, or a spawn bag, even a shrimp. That's another thing that cracks me up. The pier guys that fish on piers will fish with shrimp. But mysteriously, when the steelhead pass the concrete barrier, they go into the river. They won't. I mean, come on, guys. So they're steelhead. Their diet is very vast, and pretty much they'll eat anything. The name of the game is to always remember that a steelhead is 8 inches off the bottom. They're there for a reason. And it's not only into the drop back phase that they're not 8 inches off the bottom. So when you set your float depth, you want to make sure you're close to the bottom, because that's going to help you get more bites and more fish. And that's it.
Yeah. Pretty simple, pretty easy.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bobber.
Right?
Hey, say what you will, but the moment that the bobber gets sucked underwater, it's
the tug is the drug.
The tug is the drug.
When that bobber drains, we call it the bobber drain. When it goes under and you set that hook, and hey, the mighty steelhead is the fastest freshwater fish on planet Earth. It moves at 26 feet per second, which is around 35 miles per hour. When you get one on, it's a lot of fun.
Right.
I think the word I used earlier was Romanack was psycho, because when I think steelhead, I think psycho. And then
if you ever get a chance to either fish Michigan or Northwest Indiana for the Scamania, the landing ratio of a scam is about 33%. I mean, you're only going to land 1 out of 3. And the reason is because of their fat factor. Our Manistee strain fish have a 4% fat factor, and the Manistee or the Scamania strain has a larger fat factor. It's the fat factor and water temp which dictates how hard they fight. But if you've ever done battle with a Scamania, it's cartwheeling evil.
Yeah.
They're a lot of fun.
Cartwheeling evil.
To me, I think they're the closest to the saltwater fish out west.
That western fish.
Roger, I don't want you to give away like your secret spot or anything, but kind of the places that are well-known type destinations for steelhead. What are some of your kind of favorite spots?
I would tell people for Michigan, if you come to Michigan, the Manistee River is an amazing place. It actually gets wild fish too, right? The Manistee River, the Grand River, the Pure Marquette River, the Betsy River. There's all kinds of rivers to fish. Out here, the Cattaraugus Creek is good. Obviously, the mighty Niagara. I did fish that the other day. I got 2 words for you: chocolate milk.
Yeah. I've heard it's a little brown here this week.
Well, what it is the wind. Hey, that's fishing, right?
Yeah.
But I was happy that I got out on the mighty Niagara and got to experience it. And
it's cool. You go up to the gorge there and some of those big sinkholes and stuff. That's pretty.
Oh yeah,
that's
I saw one of them whirlpools.
Yeah, it's real deal.
I was like, boy, thank God I got my Blue Cross paid and my heart right with Jesus and a life jacket, because that was intimidating. I'm not going to lie to you.
You're wearing a Lamb of Glass hat, and I know that's a brand that you work for and a brand that you're passionate about.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I started working for Lamaglass in 2016 as a pro staffer. In 2017, they had asked me to design my very first rod with them. And since then, I've designed over 33 different rods for them, and including walleye rods, all 13 walleye rods, I designed those. But what had happened is things went so well with my rod designs and our sales out here that I was promoted to the national sales manager. So I managed all the sales staff around the country. And then in October of last year, unfortunately, our CEO had been in an airplane crash and passed away. And so a position opened up and I became the vice president of the company.
Now you have a real job.
Yeah, I got a real job.
That's one of those be careful what you wish for.
Well,
right?
see, that's the thing. Everyone thinks, well, once you get into that fishing industry, all you do is fish.
I think we could all.
Yeah,
we
all we do is talk about.
Right.
Yeah, we're here. You guys are out there.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm going to try to get some fishing in. But if folks aren't familiar, Lamaglass is the godfather of every fishing rod in this building.
Yeah.
Right. We're the ones that perfected graphite with the Boeing engineers back in the 70s, and we've been in business since 1949. Fenwick came from us. Sage Rods came from us. Gary Loomis spent 7 years with us. So it's an iconic brand. Our strong suits is salmon, steelhead, and the surf rod arena. But we are offering, bass rods, walleye rods, trout and panfish rods. And now that, I'm kind of elevated in the company, we are going to take things into some other directions, and we're going to try to expand in some other arenas and other channels of the fishing business.
I remember my first true steelhead rod was tied on a Lamaglass.
Was it? Awesome.
Oh yeah, that was a big deal. It was my first drift rod was tied on a Lamaglass.
Well, to be honest with you, we had a rough 2 years during COVID. Even though sales were there, our problem was getting the stuff.
Yeah.
We needed cork and guides and glue and reel seats and graphite and employees. That's another subject.
We've all been there. Yeah. So.
Very good, Roger. Is there anything that anything else you wanted to talk about before we let you go here?
No, I'll tell you this. I would encourage people to come out to a show like this, and I always open my seminars up. Listen, I don't profess to know everything because I don't. Everyone's entitled to an opinion, but nobody's entitled to the facts. And what I would tell people is, if you got cabin fever, get on out, come to one of these shows, go to a seminar, and learn, because it's a lifelong journey. You will never know it all. We can all learn from each other. And that's what I'd encourage people to do. And just get outdoors and enjoy the sport of fishing, because to me, it truly is therapy.
Trevor, any closing thoughts?
How can you best that? I mean, that's right. Doesn't get any better than that. So that was perfect.
Speaking the truth for Roger Hincliffe, Trevor Sumption, thanks so much for watching this afternoon. We'll be back on at 5 o'clock with Casey Prisco and an all-star lineup of guests there. We'll be on from 5 to 7 Eastern this evening. And then tomorrow, we're going to have Rick Hajecki in the morning at 9 o'clock Eastern. He's going to go through kind of boat setup with Canon and with Humminbird. Then we'll be back on at 1 o'clock. It'll be the final segment of the weekend for the virtual Great Lakes Fishing Show. Just want to thank everyone for joining us. And again, what a great venue to have this. So many great people like Roger here that can stop by and chat with us and bring that show to you. So we'll see you guys a little bit later this evening.